Well, welcome to the Michener Art Museum. My name is Dale Scafuro, and I am one of the docents at the Michener. And with me today is my fellow docent.
I'm Jen McHugh. Hi, all.
And we are really excited because we're going to be talking about one of my favorite paintings. And I know Jen really enjoys this painting, Cicada by Rob Evans. And it's one of my favorite paintings to talk about with students because it's just got a lot to it. And I think you're going to realize that once we get started. So let's, without further ado, introduce you to this painting, Cicada. And Jen, I'd like you to take a look at this because there is so much in this painting. And tell me, what do you wonder about when you look at this?
Well, Dale, I think it's also important to tell our friends that this is a really large painting as well.
Mm-hmm. Good point.
So it's kind of nice to see it on the screen because it's a little bit smaller. You can see things. It's not as overwhelming. But what do I see? I see 3 different scenes.
Okay.
And I see things that remind me of summer.
Okay.
Maybe the fireworks and those cicadas in the middle.
Okay.
And lots of different sources of light, different bright spots.
Interesting, interesting. So you kind of wonder, why is he doing all of these things?
Mm-hmm.
And let's start with what you brought up, which interesting point, that it's painted in like 3 different sections. It's actually 3 different panels, and it's what's called a triptych. And that's a way of presenting paintings that was actually started in the Middle Ages and in the Renaissance, and typically on altars. But we see a lot of contemporary artists use this as well. But what I'd like to do is let our viewers know that this painting tells a story. And we're going to work together to unravel that story. And let's start at the left. And here is that panel enlarged. This is that first panel.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you think are the most important images in this panel? What do you see that you think, the artist really is making us look at certain things in that panel?
Well, it looks like he kind of framed out the fireworks.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like the pillar on the left and the banister, the horizontal banister.
Right here. Mm-hmm.
Yes. But then you also see the sparkler on the left, which looks like it's being held by, which looks like it's being held by like a young boy.
Okay. Okay. Let's look at it again. I think it's interesting to look at it again as part of this larger complete piece. So what you pointed out was we saw some fireworks.
Mm-hmm.
We saw a boy over here on the left holding a sparkler. And this might be a good time to think about, do you see any images in this panel that are repeated at all in the other 2 panels? See anything that's consistent in all 3 panels?
Now that you mention it, Dale, I think I see water in all 3.
Okay, so there's water here.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay, I see it here. Water here. And then over here, oh, okay, the water's right here. So we see water in all 3 panels. Do you think that could be the same body of water? Anything tells us that that might be the same body of water?
I really think it is because you see that city. I'm going to assume it's a city.
Okay.
Right. All those little dots of light, they look like lights that are in a house maybe or a building.
Okay.
And you see that repeated all 3 panels.
Okay, I see it here. Oh yeah, I see it right here through this opening, right here. And then over here as well. What else do you notice, especially between this first and third panel, that is repeated, that tells you it might be a similar space?
Well, it looks like the same view
Okay.
because you can see those vertical lines in the left are repeated
okay.
in the one on the right.
Okay. Yeah, I see that. I see that. Interesting. So we see some repeated images. So now, and we talked about this little boy coming kind of into the scene here on the left. So now let's look at this scene over here, the one on the right. So
Okay.
what do you see here?
Well, like we said, we see the same background, the
Okay.
city and the water,
Okay.
but that's really set really far back. If you look
Right.
closer, you really see, I see a lot of repeating shapes. I see the ball in the foreground, which
Okay.
that's a circle,
Right.
and then the marbles
That's
in
right,
a
right here.
circle. And then also, if you look at the wheelchair, those wheels are circles.
Oh, that's right. That's
Mhm.
right. You know what else I think is interesting
What's
is
that?
how the artist uses the light. I find the light here in the space where the wheelchair is moving into interesting, as well as this light back here in the background.
I agree. That light on the right is much brighter and it's
Right.
casting a shadow.
So let's go back to this slide of the painting and think about, what do you think the artist is trying to tell us with those repeated images, with the fact that there's a little boy entering the scene right here on the left and a wheelchair exiting the scene, almost looks like towards light here on the right?
Well, I think you said earlier, Dale, that this is telling a story, right?
Okay. Yes.
And so maybe it's talking about age. You have a
Okay.
young boy on the far left. And then on the far right, there's a wheelchair, which usually is associated with someone that's older.
Okay.
And they're facing the light, which is usually a term that people use or associate with death, that they're going towards the light.
So that's really interesting, and a really good observation, because the boy, it's kind of youth entering life, a little bit in terms when you think of fireworks, they're big bursts of light, but they're fleeting. They're fleeting. And then towards the end of life. So let's now look at this, because what does this have to do with the story that it seems like we're putting together about this painting? What does this have to, can you think of, what are these? I guess we know they're cicadas because he tells us that. He gives us that clue, but what do you think that has to do with these other two panels?
Well, you know, cicadas are funny creatures because they come around in cycles. And in fact, this summer, there's supposed to be a huge group of 17-year cicadas coming out. So they come out, they grow, they reproduce, and then their eggs fall back in the ground. So as they're growing, they lose their exoskeleton.
Okay.
Like, you know, kind of like a
This
snake.
is?
Right. So that looks
Okay.
like that's it. And so I guess we can think that the new cicada up there just emerged from that
Okay.
exoskeleton.
So what I kind of hear you saying is it's the life cycle
Oh,
of this cicada that he's showing in this panel. And I do know from reading that this was the first panel that he made in this sequence.
oh.
So his idea about this story really came from this idea of the life cycle. So when we think about that, does it put any more meaning in these other parts of the painting?
Well, it definitely reminds me of a life cycle. You're
Okay.
right. Young to older. Um, yeah, I think so.
And the other thing let's think about and take that a little bit further and think about, and you've already pointed this out, some of the other repeated things in this painting. For example, that shape of a circle. It's here, it's here,
Mhm.
it's here, it's over in this last panel often as well. What do we know about a circle? What is that shape as opposed to a triangle or a square or another shape?
Well, it's
Think about it.
continuous. There's
Right.
no beginning and no end. It just is
Just
all the way around,
just
all
keeps
connected,
going.
right?
Yeah. And it kind of reminds me of this cicada because the cicada's dead, but the cicada's not dead in the sense that a new one was born from this.
Hmm.
And then think about this body of water because it's very important to this painting that that river is repeated across those three panels.
Hmm.
And to me, that's also kind of the flowing, the never-ending flow of a river as well.
Oh, that's good. I didn't think about
Yeah,
that.
it's
It
kind
doesn't
of
really have a definite start
right,
or an end. It kind of comes from water and flows into maybe a bigger
right,
body of water.
right, right. And you really pointed out a number of really interesting things about this painting. And I do know that this is a painting of a place that was very important to the artist. Rob Evans's grandparents lived at a place called Round Top,
Hmm.
which was, I guess, a farm out in the
Mm.
western part of the state, and he spent his summers there.
Ah,
And guess what one of his fondest memories was?
I'm going to guess the summer evenings and maybe hearing the cicadas and watching fireworks.
Yep.
What do you think, Dale?
That's absolutely right. That's absolutely right. That really stayed with him. And
Mhm.
that feeling was a really positive one. And in many respects, it's kind of an homage to his grandmother. I think she had ALS. So she spent, her latter time in a wheelchair. But again, that's kind of what this represents. So he used a lot of symbols in this
Mhm.
painting to tell his story. Do you think when you look at this, is it a kind of a happy story, a peaceful story? Is it a sad story? What do you think? How does it make you feel?
It's happy. It reminds me of my childhood and things that I would do and the relationship with my grandparents, which was a good one. So there's lots of different things that make me happy.
Yeah, yeah. And it's really interesting. Do you see anything else? Because he clearly used a lot of symbols,
Hmm.
which was a way for him to tell the story with things that represented other things. For example, this child kind of reminded him of life's beginning, and the fireworks kind of suggest that we grow up quickly. Life is quicker
Hmm.
than we think at the time. And certainly, you were pointed out the circles and the importance of that shape and the cicada. Anything else that you think it's important to bring out in this work?
Hmm. I mean, we could talk forever, Dale. Why did he choose an oak tree
Right,
in that center panel?
right, right,
Um, it's
right.
strong. It represents life as well.
Hmm. Do you think he also used any kind of line to kind of bring this thing together?
Oh,
Because it's pretty
you're
coherent.
you're right. You're right. There's a lot of the vertical lines in the left
Right.
with that pillar and then the
Hmm.
banister, and then on the right again, the banister. There's a
Oh, that's right.
vertical lines.
That's right. That's right.
And you could, I guess, even look in the tree. The
Oh,
bark has
look at that.
vertical lines.
Right. And think, I hadn't thought of this before, but look at the way he's drawn these leaves, because they're certainly out of proportion with this tree, but look at the lines, that same
Right.
vertical line, interesting. And even this here kind of pulls it all together.
Oh, yeah.
I think it would be interesting to just show everyone what it looked like when he was starting out. Certainly did not end this way, but starting out. And he painted this painting over 3 years.
Wow.
And evidently he showed it 7 times before he decided it was done. So I'm not quite sure when that aha moment came for him, but to think of that it started looking like this, and then what we end up with is this. Pretty
Yeah,
interesting.
it is. It is. Definitely some same themes. You still see the big firework.
Yep.
The leaves are very large. And then on the right, it's still the same basic scene, but the details are different.
Right, right. So I would encourage our guests that are listening today, if they want to learn more about Rob Evans and see more of his work, there are on our site at the Michener, under our learning site, there's more information. And then he also has his own website, the Rob Evans website, that also has some interesting information just about his background, and about his process, and about, really, in a sense, how important this painting really was to him personally, and professionally. So, well, I had a lot of fun going through this painting with you today, Jen.
I do too, Dale. I always find that when I look at it closely and learn a little bit more about the background, I just really fall more in love with the work. And
Right.
it definitely is a very
Right.
special piece.
Right. And I think this is one of those kind of paintings too that makes you, once you see it and think about it, learn more about it and learn more about him.
Yep, definitely.
All right. Well, have a good day.
Bye, all.
And bye-bye. Bye-bye from the Michener, and we look forward to seeing you in person very soon.